guys, and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we're going to be honing our cylinders, but before we do that, I'm going to show you guys how to actually measure your cylinder bores. Now you refer to the Honda service manual for the specs, but measuring your cylinder bores is a very critical step of the process because this determines if you have to send your block out to get machined or not at the machine shop. If they do have to machine it, you'll have to get the bores of your cylinder oversized, which means you're going to have to run some oversized pistons, which leads me to the other thing that you have to measure, which is your pistons. So in today's video, I'll go over how you will measure your cylinder bores and your pistons. Now I've already gone ahead and measured all the cylinder bores on my engine, and they're all within spec. So technically I'm ready to actually start the honing process. But I'm going to go over how to do the measurements anyways with you guys. So we'll do the measurements as well as go over how to do the honing. Now you're going to need a couple tools. You're going to need a micrometer and some telescoping gauges here. So these are the telescoping gauges. As well, for the honing process, you're going to need a cylinder hone. The cylinder hone, you're going to have to check if they are fine grit stones or not. This came with medium grit stones, so I have to change these stones out for some fine grit stones. The medium grit stones are actually a little bit too coarse for the cylinder walls, so we're supposed to be using some fine grit 400 grit stones, which I've managed to get myself some as well. So we'll be switching these out as well later. So let's get started. Alright guys, I'm going to show you guys how to do the measurements on this cylinder here. Now, you're going to have to take two measurements per cylinder. One for the x-axis and one for the y-axis, and you're going to do it in 3 spots on the cylinder. So the top, middle, and the bottom. So about 1.5 centimeters from the top, 1.5 centimeters from the bottom, and obviously in the middle. And you're going to need to use a telescoping gauge for that. Now this is a telescoping gauge, so this goes in and out. So once you get to a certain point where it's like completely at the outsides of the bore, you will tighten this pin down here, and this will hold the measurement. Now, if you release it, it comes back to a regular spot. Now this is how you would do it. Now as you can see, you just slip it in like so, and then you make sure that it is centered. So you gotta move it around and take a look, make sure it's centered, and then you tighten the pin, and then you pull this out. Now that is the measurement that you're gonna need. Now in order for you to take the measurement, you're gonna need the micrometer. Now a micrometer is like able to take very, very accurate measurements. So you put this in the center of the micrometer, and then you twist until you get to the measurement, and then you read your measurement off your micrometer. And that's basically how you would actually measure your cylinder bores. Now I'll show you guys how to measure your pistons. Alright, for measuring pistons, you need to measure the skirt of the piston, which is right on the side here. So this pin this tab here, you just measure from this spot all the way to this spot here, and that will determine the size of the piston. So basically these 2 spots using your micrometer. So it's easiest to just stand it up like this. I use the crank bolt just to put it up like this, and then take the micrometer, put it in here, and then you do your measurement. That way it is standing up and it's easy to measure. So you'll do all for your pistons as well and determine if they are actually within spec. If they are under the service limit, you would want to replace your pistons. Alright, to hone the cylinder is pretty straightforward. I already got some oil in there, but I'll add a little bit more oil. So all you do is put some oil in the cylinder. You want to spread that all the way around. Now after that's all spread around, you take your cylinder hone with the 400 grit sanding stones, and then you would compress the hone like so. And it's attached to a drill. Then you would insert this, and then you want to turn the drill on to about medium speed and go up and down motion. And then you want to exit the cylinder while it's still spinning. So you don't want to stop inside the cylinder. And then you'll just wipe it up and have a look to see if you got a nice cross hatching. So the cross hatching degree should be around 40 to 60 degrees inside. So that's basically how you would hone the cylinders. You would repeat the process for all the cylinders, and you'll notice that it would actually clean the cylinder walls up real good with the hone, so that it takes away all that glazing. Now after you've checked the hone is good, you want to lubricate it if you're not going to clean this right away. So re-lubricate it with some engine oil. Alright guys, the honing process is all complete now. I've actually just finished cleaning this outside with some soap and water. So all 4 cylinders are all nice and clean. I still need to do some ATF wiping. So you use some ATF because it has some detergent in there. And you would just wipe it until you get rid of any of the remnants in the cylinder walls. When I wiped it with some WD-40, it did turn a little bit black still from the honing process. So I will do that later when I decide to reassemble this block. However, it is good for the time being. I'm just about to wrap it up. Now, I did remeasure all the cylinders after I finished honing them. I did have to hone them a little bit longer because all 4 cylinders had some scratches within the cylinder walls. I think the piston rings just dug into them somehow. For some reason, because it was in the horizontal position, it just looked like it was just dug in there. However, the hone was able to remove all those defects on all 4 cylinders, and I remeasured the bore sizes. Now, all the bores for this one, and this one are all fine. So these 3 here are all fine, well within spec and below the service limit, way below the service limit. So these 3 cylinders are completely fine. However, cylinder 1 here has a taper problem. What I mean by taper problem is when you measure top, middle, and bottom, the top section is actually a little bit bigger than the middle and the bottom. The middle and the bottom are actually exactly the same measurement, but the top section of this, however, is still round because you measure the X and Y axes, is a little bit bigger, and it just pushed it right out of service limit. Now, because the middle and the bottom section are still well within the service limit, like way below, well, not below, but just a little bit below the service limit, I'm just going to run it as is and see how it goes. If something like this does happen, where any of the areas you measure in the cylinder is pushed over the service limit or within the service limit, you're supposed to get all 4 cylinders bored out to run oversized pistons. However, I don't want to do that because these 3 are still completely fine. Just this one has a little bit of issue. But because the middle section and the bottom section are still below the service limit, I think it'll still seal okay. But this, obviously, running it as is the wrong way to do it. You should send it out to the machine shop if you guys do find something like this. However, most of you guys are probably just going to have the machine shop do all the work anyway, so it should be okay. But for me, I'm just going to send it. This cylinder is not going to... It is a little bit troublesome that it has a taper issue, but the taper, when you measure the top and the bottom, isn't deviating over 0.05, so technically it is fine as per Honda service manual, but because just the top section is pushed over the service limit, it kind of is a little bit worrisome. So it might burn oil once I reassemble it, but we will see. I am going to just run it as is. There you go, guys. That's a short video on how to hone your cylinders. Now, a quick tip is how to get that nice cross-hatching degree that you're looking for within your cylinder walls. Now, that's a combination of your drill speed and the up and down motion that you're going to be doing while you're going to be honing your cylinders. Now, I would recommend going slow at the beginning and then checking your cylinders to see if you are getting that nice cross-hatching. If you aren't, you may need to speed up the drill a little bit, speed up the motion a little bit, but you will have to fine-tune your technique to get that nice cross-hatching. Another tip is you always have to measure your bore after you're done honing, because especially if you started off with something that's really close to the service limit already, you may actually bump it right over just from the honing process. So then you have to really determine if you want to run it or not, or have to send it out to the machine shop to get it overboard. Now, like I said earlier, my cylinder 1 has this weird taper thing. And it is actually a little bit over the service limit for the top section of the cylinder. However, I am going to run it because for the most part, the midsection and the bottom section is fine on the cylinder. So I think the piston rings would still seal up fine on here. So we're just going to run it. But that is not the right way. Like I said earlier, you do have to send it out to a machine shop when you do find something like that. I'm just going to take my chances and run it as is. Anyways, guys, that's it for this video. I hope it helps you guys out. If you haven't already, please comment, like, and subscribe, and share my videos. As always, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.